I'd like to call this regular council meeting to order. Before we proceed, I'd like to ask Councillor Lewis to read the land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Your Worship. We acknowledge the land upon which we are gathered is the traditional territory of the Attawandarock, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe people. We are the beneficiaries of ancient agreements such as the Dish with One Spoon between the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, who agree to share the abundance of land through peace, friendship, and mutual respect. The two-row wampum, by which the Haudenosaunee welcomed settlers and agreed to share the land in mutual respect, and the Treaty of Niagara, considered a fundamental document by First Nations in all future relations and treaties with the British. We recognize that we have a responsibility to be stewards of the land in cooperation and collaboration with Indigenous people, not only for one generation, but for all generations to come. We understand that we have an obligation to learn the lessons from our history, educate ourselves about the experiences of Indigenous people, and seek opportunities to heal the wounds that will result in reconciliation with our Indigenous sisters and brothers. Many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people live and work in Fort Erie. We stand with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship on the land in which we live. We have the good fortune to live in a land of such abundance, diversity, and beauty. Let us be vigilant of protecting Turtle Island.
Thank you, Councillor Lewis. Would you all please rise for the invocation?
We meet to serve our community and endeavor to be worthy custodians of all that has been entrusted to us. Let us be concerned only for what will promote good government. May we bring to our council chamber minds that think and hearts that feel, so that in our deliberations we may display imagination, wisdom, courage, and the will to do our work for the good of all.
Thank you. And Mr. Clerk, the roll call, please.
Yes, Your Worship. Councillors Flagg and Noyes send their regrets. All other members of council are present.
Thank you. We have one addendum this evening. It's an additional item for closed session with respect to a development on Pettit Road and at the intersection with Gilmore Road. Just three brief announcements. The first is correspondence that I received last month with respect to our Director of Planning, Anamika Dilwaria, who was away at the time. And it's a letter from the Association of Municipal Managers, Clerks, and Treasurers of Ontario announcing that Ms. Dilwaria had successfully completed the intensive process to graduate from the association's Executive Diploma in Municipal Management program. And they indicated this is a tremendous accomplishment and should be regarded with pride by our entire municipality. AMCTO is the largest municipal professional association in Ontario, and Anamika has successfully completed the rigorous evaluation process to graduate from that diploma program, so congratulations. We held off so that you could be here. Secondly, I wanted to, aside from some other upcoming meetings, there is a public information center to be held with respect to flooding alleviation along 6 Mile Creek on Thursday, December the 14th, from 5 to 7 p.m. at the Crystal Ridge Library to introduce the project to the public. That will be on our agenda at the next public meeting, but we wanted to get that information out now. And information will also be posted on our Let's Talk Fort Erie website shortly. And then finally, I wanted to remind residents that there is a public health care meeting scheduled for this Thursday, November the 30th at 6:30 p.m. at the Fort Erie Leisureplex. It's about more than hospital services. It's with respect to staffing shortages, access to health care, underfunding of our health services, and the direction of healthcare in our community. So if you can make it out, please do so. It's an opportunity for the community to, again, show support for our hospital and for the services that we have and need in this community. That then takes us to declarations of pecuniary interest. There being none, that takes us to notices of upcoming public meetings. We have our next budget meeting scheduled for Wednesday, December the 6th, 2023, and that is with respect to water and wastewater operating budget and user fee analysis. All budget meetings start at 6 p.m. They're held here in the council chambers. The one after that will be December the 18th, 2023, when we will be considering the bylaw with respect to the water and wastewater budget and the rates and user fees issue. We have an open house with respect to a proposed official plan and zoning bylaw amendment at 557 Walden Boulevard, scheduled for Thursday, November the 30th, 2023 at 5 p.m. here in the Town Hall atrium. We have a public meeting, the process to review and update our official plan on Monday, December the 11th, 2023 at 6 p.m. The information report with respect to that will be available on our website by 5 p.m. on Wednesday, December the 6th. We also have a development charges public meeting for the same evening, December the 11th, here in the council chambers. And again, the information report on that will be available Wednesday, December the 6th, 2023 by 5 p.m. That then takes us to the regional councilors report. Good evening, Councillor Encina.
Good evening, Mayor Redekop, councillors, staff, ladies and gentlemen. My comments tonight are very short. They deal mainly with, as you can well imagine, what we have been going through at the region. On every Thursday thus far is our budget, 2024 budget. And I see in your upcoming budget for the town, you're going to be talking about water and wastewater rates. And I'm sure what has come from the region will have a significant impact of how you move forward with that. As many know, the police budget was sent back, requesting them to have a second look. And it's expected to come back. Not really sure how that's going to go. The Niagara Transit Commission will be bringing back their budget to Regional Council this Thursday. Again, this is another interesting event. It will they were looking at over, I believe it was a 7% increase. Council at first asked them to go back, and they are going to come back again with, we're not sure what. This week is a levy workshop that will be taking place, and it was anticipated that staff have been asking for a 9% increase. I don't think that's going to happen. I really do believe that we're going to fall. I'm hoping between 6 and 7%. I'm hoping our mayor, who is the budget chair, can wrangle a few things going on. So we'll see what happens in our next meeting, the workshop. That's about it for me. More than welcome to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Councillor Encina, for the report and for reminding me about the region's budget. I've been trying very hard to forget about it, but it's and you're right. The region's water and wastewater budget has a significant impact on our budget here. It's 62% of the cost of providing safe drinking water and sanitary sewage to the residents of the town of Fort Erie. So it has a major impact, and we're going to learn all about that next week at our budget meeting. Councillor McDermott.
I don't really have a question, Your Worship. I do want to say, though, that, Councillor Encina has been doing some yeoman's work on behalf of all the taxpayers of this community. When others sat silent for the longest time, he just carried on, and probably felt like the Maytag repairman at times. But I will say this: he does have the taxpayers in mind. It's not a commercial for him, but he is doing yeoman's work there. And as a town councillor and as a citizen, I appreciate that.
And I'm sure Councillor Encina appreciates the comment as well. Anyone else? If not, then kudos to you for saving time. Can't save money, save time. Okay. We have a presentation this evening, Betty Talbot and Joanne Wolfenberg from the Brain Injury Association of Fort Erie. Good evening, ladies.
Staff, yes. Thank you for having us. We really appreciate it. I'm here tonight, well, I'm going to let Jonna talk mostly, but I just wanted to say that we're here representing the Brain Injury of Fort Erie. We have been successful in being able to get the coldest night of the year walk for the town of Fort Erie. We've never had it before. We had to fight really hard to get it, but we got it. So now we have to plan what we're going to do, and we're looking for sponsors, we're looking for walkers, we're looking for leaders, team leaders. We're organizing, we're getting there. We thought we were going to have our toques and things to come and bring you some presents tonight, but they're not coming out until December 1st week, apparently. So anyway, does anybody have any questions about the brain injury? Everybody knows what the Brain Injury Association of Fort Erie is? Yeah. Okay, Jonna?
Okay, I believe we have a quick video if they,
It's not really very good quality. I'm sorry about that. Something happened in the transmission when I forwarded it to Town Hall, but
Just for the
hopefully.
record, your name is Jonna.
Jonna, yes
Yeah,
it
yeah.
is.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So, Mr. Pat, do you have the video to queue up?
That's it. Image 9032, that's the one.
Yeah, and we don't know why it didn't come clear because,
Hi, my name is Katie Ann Wolfenberg. Hi, my name is Katie Ann Wolfenberg. I'm 18 years old and a first-year nursing student at Brock University. I'm the Niagara Regional Youth Impact Award recipient, and I have raised over $1,000 for the Brain Injury Association of Fort Erie in the coldest night of the year. And I challenge the mayor and all the councillors to at least match that $1,000 donation. Thank you so much and have a nice day. Hi.
That's Katie Ann.
so, yeah, it's my daughter. I'm a little biased on it, but she is the Niagara Regional Youth Impact Award recipient for all her endeavors and all the volunteer work she has done in this community. So she has championed, also along with Betty, to get the coldest night of the year here for the city of Fort Erie, the town of Fort Erie. I will tell you, it was a very uphill battle to get this walk, but we are excited that we do have it. We are hopeful that if we reach the goal that we have set, that the brain injury will become, hopefully through this walk, successful in our fundraising endeavors, and we won't have to come back to the community with a whole bunch of other fundraising initiatives, and then it leaves the door open to help other nonprofits that are here in our town. So when I asked my daughter what the biggest challenge was, and this is directly from an 18-year-old, she says they do the work in this community, and where they find they have the challenges, they cannot get the doors open for them. They do the presentations, they knock on the doors, but they don't know how to get to the businesses in town. And she says, when she asks for help, help is not readily given. So therefore lies the challenge for our youth who are willing to do the work, who want to give back to our community, and find that they just can't get the support to reach the big industries here that are in town. So she is challenged, first of all, the council and the mayor to put a team in on February 24th at the coldest night of the year walk. And she is also challenging each of the dignitaries here to at least try and raise the $1,000 that she has done. Why? 18 years old, in the hardest program, the nursing program at Brock University, full-time studies and working part-time. So we believe if she can do it, we are asking that council also do it. We ask that you show up on February 24th and that you walk with these young leaders in our community.
Just a sec. I also got an email today telling me that because I was coming here to do this tonight, that I should let you know that the councils for Owen Sound, Newmarket, and Orangeville have already signed up teams for their cities and towns for the coldest night of the year. So now they had to step up on us because they've had the walk before, so their website just had to be reactivated. We had to go all brand new, but we're up and running now, so we have it. Anyway.
And then we have one more thing from Katie Ann. So this is for the mayor and for council. So I'll just leave it here and then I'll read what I have from her. And this is different initiatives that they take on. So it says, Council, you've been socked by the Brain Injury Association of Fort Erie. Christmas time is oh so dear, so let's spread some Christmas cheer. Open the sock and grab some cash. Let's get ready to make a splash. A happy friend will love to find that they can also help in kind. Hang the sock from your friend's front door so Christmas joy will spread some more. Thanks for joining in the fun. Let's hope this travels to everyone. So what she has in there is some envelopes. So she asked that through the town of Fort Erie, the people that you work with, that you would take an envelope, put a couple dollars in it, seal it up, and when it's traveled through your place of work, that you would then pass it on to another community business here in Fort Erie. And it's a way for everybody to kind of get involved and learn also a little bit about the brain injury. These young community leaders cannot be everywhere, but they thought this would be a fun place to kind of start and hope that it brings a smile on your face.
And it's Christmas.
And it's Christmas, and this will go towards helping the coldest night of the year. Every dollar raised will go directly to the coldest night of the year. So they're putting in the effort, they're trying to be creative, and I really hope that the town of Fort Erie steps up and supports these young leaders of tomorrow.
Thank you very much. So just for clarity, the funds that will be raised by the coldest night of the year walk in Fort Erie will be revenues that the Brain Injury Association of Fort Erie will retain.
All of it.
All of it.
What time is the walk scheduled for?
It starts at 4 o'clock. We're asking people to register online, of course, so that we can get everybody registered and know how many are there. It starts at 4, and they tell us that it takes it's a 2-kilometer walk. Tell us it takes about 2 hours, I think he said.
All in total.
Yeah.
All in total. So the time you start, the time we have opening ceremonies, the time you do your walk. You can also do 5K for those that
That are ambitious.
And then we'll come back and
We've arranged it for it's going to start at the G-Fest. They're going to walk around the back parking lot, around to the front of the school again, across the crosswalk, up the street and down Buffalo Road and around Municipal Drive and back around, and that's 2 kilometers. And then the culinary, I've talked to Mr. Kay and Fred at the school, and they are going to supply a light lunch, maybe soup and sandwiches or something, from the culinary students at the end.
So again, we're tying, the young leaders back into our community.
We're trying to get, and by picking the high school, I thought it was almost central from north and south and west, right? I want to try to get everybody from all areas of Fort Erie, not just the north end, so.
And it's also a big walk. It's a walk that goes right across Canada and the United
Nationwide.
States. Yeah, it's a nationwide campaign, and and I'm very grateful for the amount of work that Betty put in to secure this walk for the town. We hope it's successful, that we will get it, year after year, and that we can build on this, and that the Brain Injury Association becomes sustainable on its own without having to look for outside funds.
What we're looking at here is if we are able to be successful this year, then next year we will try to partner with another agency in town and see if we can raise money for both agencies. Like Stronger Fort Erie Neighborhoods needs so much help, but we can't partner with them yet until we know if we're going to be able to get things going. So that's the whole idea. Salvation Army, maybe, know?
Yeah, so the idea is that once we have the walk and we're successful, the more that it grows over the years, that we start to invite the different nonprofits in, and we start to make, if we want to be stronger Fort Erie, then this is the first stepping stone to it.
Well, we think.
We believe. We believe this is it. We've got the young community leaders who are willing also to help. We've got the school on board, and now we need the community leaders, which are sitting before us today.
Great. When I saw what your presentation was about, I remembered, it's got to be 10 or 12 years ago, I participated in a coldest night of the year, but it wasn't a walk. It was camping out overnight.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
We can do that for you to raise money. Absolutely. I can pitch you a tent.
So I was thinking how much happier I am just doing a walk. And
You can,
I know
you can run if you like.
It's a very good cause. Councillor Lewis, you had a question, no doubt.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for the presentation. A couple of questions. One was, what are the size of the teams?
We're looking for 100 people.
And the other is the website in order to find more information, or where do people go to find out more about what you're doing?
Coldest night of the year, Fort Erie. It'll take you right to our website. It's a friendly user website. Everything you need, tools, pledge forms, the route, walkers, where we start. They've done an excellent job on the website.
Shows how much money has been raised so far, all of that. It's really, really well done, and it is very user-friendly, that site, yeah.
Well, and if December is anything like it was last year, Fort Erie is a good spot for coldest night of the year. Last question, and that is and I lost my train of thought. I'll yield and see if anyone else has one while it comes back to me or doesn't.
Yeah, just for clarification, so you're hoping 100 people will participate, but you're looking at a variety of teams that will be challenging each other and
That's
helping to
right.
raise money. So is there a typical size, 6, 8?
They seem to be around. 10. 10 seems to, for some reason, be the magic number. Unless it's a church group, then it seems to be larger. Yes.
Okay. Councillor Lewis, train back?
It did come back to me. You've mentioned that some of the youth doing some of the reach out in the business community have been having a difficult time. Have you tried connecting with the Chamber of Commerce to see if maybe your information can be distributed in their newsletter, or if they have a way of better reaching
I'm a
the
member
membership?
of the chamber. Brain injury is not, so I have to talk to Dolores and see if there is some way I can get it put on the webcast or the email blast or something without having to pay the $58. So,
And the other thing too is, like, they're willing to do the work, and they've done the work, which is, the kids. You see it in these awards that they get. You see them put the time, the effort in, and they're willing to do the presentations. They just can't. They can't get past the gatekeepers. Let's be honest. That's what they are. They just, they send their emails, they do their follow-up phone calls, and they don't get anywhere. And it's frustrating because these are the kids that we want to keep in our community, that we want to be the future leaders, and they feel like they're not valued as community members when they can't get the doors open for them. I mean, we've got such an aging population in the Niagara region and such a shortage of nurses, and here they are offered up on a platter saying, I can't get anywhere. Like, where do I go from here? So I think this is also a great opportunity to connect with, these future leaders and show them that we are behind them 100%. And
I'm going to be talking to the fire chief too and asking them to put in a team, and I'm going to get my nephew to challenge them to meet the
And it doesn't have to be a lot either. Like, every couple of dollars helps us. If everybody in this community raised $2, we're self-sustainable for a year. And the great thing is, as we get to build on this, we get to invite different charities. We don't want to be the one that says we want it all. We want the whole of town of Fort Erie to get in on this walk, to benefit. And we feel this is the right path for it. There's no other way, and I've been fundraising for a very long time. I can't think of another way to get everybody together on one night cohesively and split the profits among all the people that need it in this. And I think it's a great adventure, and I think it's going to really take off and do great things for the town of Fort Erie once we get the first one under our belt. If we can't raise the financial money that they want, we will not be successful in getting it again. Right. So the challenge is there.
Our
goal is $20,000.
Minimum.
Very optimistic you will hit that. We're going to be circulating the envelopes, and I'm sure that the council will be pleased to put in a team at some point. And we'll get Councillor Insing involved, get Councillor McDermott working on that.
But that's the fun part for them, right?
You can take part too.
Yep. Yes, to help us cross that street.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you very much, ladies.
Any
Good
other
luck, and we'll
questions?
see you
No?
on the 24th.
Thank you very
All
much.
right, thank you.
We have a special job for you on the 24th.
Perfect.
Yeah.
As long as I don't have to sleep outside.
Nope. For all of you.
Okay. That then takes us to public meetings, and we have a public meeting this evening with respect to our tree bylaw and prospective amendments to that. We have a presentation by Rachel Daniels, our senior environmental planner, who has been working diligently on this, and I invite you to the podium, Ms. Daniels. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone.
I guess I should mention that we're going to use the typical public meeting format. You'll be introducing the topic, providing us with some background information, and then we'll open up the floor to any members of the public who wish to speak to council and provide us with their wisdom on the issue. So please proceed.
Great. Thank you very much. Good evening, Your Worship, members of council, Fort Erie residents. My name is Rachel Daniels, and I'm the Senior Environmental Planner with the Town of Fort Erie, conducting today's presentation. The purpose of the presentation is to provide information for this November 27th public meeting regarding potential amendments to the town's tree bylaw, as communicated within Information Report PDS 78-2023. The information presented today will seek to provide council and the public with options for consideration regarding an updated bylaw derived from compiling research from other municipal tree bylaws within Southern Ontario. I will begin today's presentation with the relevant background information relating to the initiation of amendments to this tree bylaw. I will then provide an overview of the existing bylaw as well as the Niagara Region Woodland Conservation Bylaw, followed by a summary of the impacts that Fort Erie's tree canopy has been experiencing. An overview of the open house and the comments received as part of that process will also be outlined, after which I will begin to provide further information related to the various options for consideration that are described within the information report. These include regulation approaches, exemptions, permit issuance criteria, compensation, and enforcement. Lastly, next steps will be outlined, including a request for feedback from council on the desired regulation approach. In response to several accounts of tree clearing occurring within the town, council directed staff on May 29th, 2023 to provide council with a memo regarding bylaw 6004, being a bylaw to regulate the destruction, injury, and harvesting of trees in the town of Fort Erie. Following the completion of the memo, council authorized staff on August 28th, 2023 to initiate a review and amendment to bylaw 6004, hereafter referenced as the tree bylaw, in accordance with the Municipal Act of Ontario, as outlined in PDS Report 54-2023. The review is intended to determine the effectiveness of the existing woodland bylaw in regards to protection of canopy coverage within the town, to investigate other municipal tree bylaws throughout Ontario and conduct a review on the effectiveness of each approach, as well as to initiate a public consultation program in order to hear what local residents have to say. As such, this information report is intended to provide an overview of the review and present several options for consideration. The town's existing tree bylaw regulates the destruction, injury, and harvesting of trees covering an area between 0.5 hectares and 1 hectare in areas that are considered to be woodlands. The Niagara Region Woodland Conservation Bylaw 2020-79 governs the cutting of trees in woodlands greater than 1 hectare, which is the smallest size woodland upper tier municipalities are authorized to regulate under the Municipal Act 2001. The Municipal Act provides several clauses to guide the coordination of such matters between lower tier and upper tier municipalities. Both bylaws include the same definition of woodlands, which is derived from the Forestry Act definition, in which a treed area must meet a specified density to be considered a woodland. Under the town's existing tree bylaw, passed by council in 2004, no permits have ever been issued, and only 1 permit has recently been applied for. The existing bylaw is rarely applicable, as it only applies to woodlands between 0.5 and 1 hectares. As such, minimal town staffing resources have been required under the existing bylaw. However, town staff do frequently request the assistance of regional staff who have expertise in conducting woodland density assessments. There are several ongoing issues related to tree removal within the town of Fort Erie that have triggered the need for a review and update to the existing bylaw, which I will provide an overview of now. Planning staff have frequently been informed of clearing of trees in advance of development applications in an attempt to avoid constraints and the need for an environmental impact study. This has been a prominent issue being dealt with by town staff. Additionally, within recent years, Fort Erie has been significantly impacted by the infestation of emerald ash borer, an invasive beetle that causes significant harm to ash trees, often resulting in the death of the tree. The loss of ash trees has resulted in many wooded areas not meeting the density requirements of a woodland, meaning that the tree can be removed without the requirement for permits. A significant number of wooded areas within the town of Fort Erie have developed on historical agricultural lands and are considered culturally regenerating woodlands. Within these woodlands, high numbers of invasive species are present, most notably common buckthorn. The spread of common buckthorn in its shrub form has the ability to reduce the density of woodlands to below the threshold for regulation within both bylaws. As the regional woodland bylaw and the current town of Fort Erie bylaw only regulate woodlands, there is currently no protection of large individual trees outside of woodlands. Large trees are often of importance to residents due to the aesthetic value, historic value, and shade value that they provide, particularly within the urban boundary. The removal of large trees is often seen within development applications under the Planning Act. From a complaint perspective, the removal of large trees outside of natural areas has historically not been as major of an issue for the town as the clear cutting of woodlands. Lastly, the town of Fort Erie does not currently have a public tree bylaw that regulates the injury or destruction of trees on municipal property. Planning staff frequently receive requests to remove trees on municipal property, mainly in boulevards and along the public right-of-way, in order to necessitate a Planning Act approval. In particular, the removal of public trees is often required to construct a driveway during severance applications. The residents of Fort Erie and local stakeholders were provided an opportunity to provide feedback related to potential amendments to the existing tree bylaw during and prior to an open house held on September 25th, 2023 at Town Hall. A fulsome summary of the public comments and the comments from the town's Environmental Advisory Committee are included within the information report. However, key themes from the comments are as follows. Residents expressed their desire for a greater level of enforcement, including the implementation of administrative monetary penalties. They expressed concern over the impacts to tree canopy from developers during the development process. They expressed concern over the impacts to the tree canopy. They expressed the desire to protect large historic trees. They expressed concern around boundary trees. There was a desire for residents to be able to manage and harvest trees responsibly on their own property. A desire for the protection of all individual trees. A desire for high compensation ratios scaled to the size of the tree, with replacement trees being planted on the property as the primary option as opposed to cash in lieu to the town. There were concerns over increased flooding or the displacement of wildlife caused by tree and or woodland removal. And there was a desire for no-cost permits for hazard or dead trees. In general, most comments received during the consultation period were in support of enhanced tree protection measures throughout the town, with clear definitions on what constitutes a woodland or a hazardous tree. However, some residents did express concern over the regulation of individual trees on private property. Staff have conducted extensive research on municipal tree bylaws within Ontario in order to evaluate various regulatory approaches that would be best suited for the town of Fort Erie. Taking into consideration the feedback from the public, other municipal regulation approaches, as well as the nature of Fort Erie's current demographic and environmental landscapes, staff have developed a number of criteria that could strengthen tree protection within the town while balancing other strategic priorities and staffing needs in order to administer the bylaw. The town's current tree bylaw only applies for tree removal in woodlands between 0.5 and 1 hectare. In the vast majority of cases where the town is informed of tree removal, the town's woodland bylaw does not apply as the area does not meet the threshold of a woodland or the woodland is outside of the size limitations of the bylaw. In order to address this issue, staff have compiled a list of trees that could be considered as regulated under the new bylaw from injury and or destruction that may address the most substantial impacts that the town is experiencing. Under this approach, permits could be required for trees identified within the town's natural heritage system, which may provide a greater level of protection for natural heritage features that may not meet the tree density criteria to be regulated under the current regional and town bylaws. trees designated as heritage trees under Part 4 and Part 5 of the Ontario Heritage Act. It should be noted that not all large diameter old growth trees will meet the criteria to be designated as a heritage tree. Only one tree in the town is designated as a heritage tree, and the existing bylaw includes protection of heritage trees as it is right now. Lands upon which there is a pending application for any of the following development approvals, including a plan of subdivision, plan of condominium, a severance or consent, an official plan amendment, a zoning bylaw amendment, a minor variance, or a site plan approval. This approach would regulate trees between the time that a pre-consultation meeting is held to the time it is approved to prevent premature clearing. Trees identified as a tree for preservation in a tree preservation plan submitted as part of a development application. This approach may result in the protection of smaller diameter trees outside of natural heritage features that would otherwise be at risk for being removed following construction activities. And lastly, all trees owned by the town of Fort Erie and/or those trees located on property owned by the town of Fort Erie, otherwise known as public trees. Generally, these trees are being requested to be removed in relation to development applications or new driveways within the town's right-of-way. The regulation of these trees presents an opportunity to standardize the request and permitting process for these trees, as well as require compensation or protection for those trees as well. Staff anticipate the need for an additional staff resource to administer and enforce a bylaw with the above noted regulation approaches. Staff have also presented the following two regulation approaches for consideration, both of which would serve to provide a substantial increase in protection on trees within the town. The first of these being the regulation of all individual trees on private property over 50 centimeter diameter at breast height within the urban boundary. For those who are unfamiliar, diameter at breast height generally refers to the diameter of a tree measured at 1.4 meters above the ground. This approach would regulate the removal and/or injury of large diameter trees that residents feel are providing shade, aesthetic, and climate mitigation value. Regulating trees less than 50 centimeter DBH would result in a significantly higher number of permit applications with increased staff resourcing required. Staff feel that a 50 centimeter DBH threshold will address a significant number of the concerns raised by residents during the public consultation period. The second approach for consideration is the regulation of trees on lands designated as residential, which are 2.02 hectares in size or greater. This approach has the potential to provide an increased level of protection for trees on properties that are most likely to undergo residential developments. It is important to note that individual tree removal, such as trees removed as part of a backyard pool or other structure, has not appeared to be a major concern resulting in complaints to the town at this point in time. Regulating individual trees outside of natural heritage areas, as described on this slide, would require significant staffing resources to administer the permitting and enforcement. Following the conclusion of this presentation, staff will be seeking feedback from council on the desired regulation approaches within an updated bylaw. Staff have compiled a list of required exemptions under the Municipal Act and others for consideration. Most notably within the Municipal Act, exemptions is the injury or destruction of trees imposed as a condition to the approval of a site plan, plan of subdivision, or consent under the Planning Act, or as a requirement of a site plan agreement or subdivision agreement. This has been identified as an exemption as it is anticipated that tree protection will be assessed through various other study requirements like environmental impact studies or tree protection plans in place of a bylaw during that process. In addition to the required exemptions within the Municipal Act, trees that are regulated under the Niagara Region Woodland Conservation Bylaw would require an exemption from the town's bylaw, as a bylaw enacted by an upper tier municipality will supersede that of a lower tier municipality. Due to this exemption, a coordination approach with the Niagara Region would be required, in that areas with the potential to be considered a woodland would first be screened by the Niagara Region Forester. If the area meets a definition of a woodland, as defined within the Forestry Act, the Niagara Region Woodland Conservation Bylaw will apply. If the area does not meet the criteria to be considered a woodland under the regional bylaw, the town's updated bylaw may apply if the tree meets the criteria to be regulated. Staff have compiled a list of other exemptions for consideration within the bylaw, consistent with numerous tree bylaws throughout southern Ontario. These include an exemption for invasive species, to which a list of species will need to be determined by staff. This approach allows for the removal of invasive species known to cause negative effects on plant communities, whilst the surrounding trees that meet the criteria to be regulated remain protected. The injuring or destruction of trees undertaken by a conservation authority, the injuring or destruction of trees at the direction of emergency services, the injury or destruction of a tree located within a building, solarium, rooftop garden, interior courtyard, actively managed golf course, cemetery, actively managed cultivated orchard, tree farm, or plant nursery. The harvesting or injury of trees by a farmer that involves the clearing of all or part of a regulated area for agricultural use on land that is owned by the farmer and is part of a farm operation. This allows for normal farm practices to continue to meet a balance between environmental protection and agriculture. The property would have to be put into agricultural use within 3 years of the clearing in order to ensure that this clause is not being used to clear trees prior to development applications. And lastly, the injury or destruction of hazard trees outside of the natural heritage system. This approach would allow for the removal of trees that are an imminent threat to safety without waiting for a permit to be processed. And similarly, the injury or destruction of up to 3 hazard trees within the natural heritage system. Removal of more than 3 trees within the natural heritage system, regardless of the state of the tree, that be dead, dying, or hazardous, will require a permit to ensure that the exemption is not utilized for large-scale clearing. Trees exempt under these 2 clauses on the slide you see in front of you would not require a permit from the town, but could require written notice and the completion of an arborist report. Additionally, staff present 2 additional exemption options, which include trees located within 2 meters of an occupied building that have a high potential to result in structural damage to the house, as well as the harvest of trees by an owner of a tree within a regulated area where the owner has been the registered owner of the property for a minimum of 2 years prior to the date of personal harvest, provided that such activity is consistent with good forestry practices. No more than 10 trees are harvested in a calendar year per hectare. Written notice is provided to the town, and the removals are not in contravention of the Regional Woodland Conservation Bylaw. If removal of a protected tree is needed and the trees are not included in any of the proposed exemptions, a tree removal application and permit may then be required. Depending on the nature of the permit request, applications may need to be accompanied with supporting documentation, such as an arborist report. Upon submission of a permit application, staff could have the ability to refuse or grant a permit for a tree removal based on several criteria. In general, permits could be granted when the town is satisfied there are no reasonable alternatives, the town is satisfied there are no grounds to refuse a permit, the injury or destruction of the tree is required for the purposes of a building permit and all other reasonable alternatives have been explored, and the tree does not fall under the authority of the Regional Woodland Conservation Bylaw or subject to NPCA, Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority, approvals. In general, permits may be refused when the tree is considered a species at risk or heritage tree, migratory birds are making use of the tree, ecological systems may be negatively impacted, or erosion or sedimentation may result, the permit holder is no longer the owner of the land, trees are located in an area where a development application is pending approval, the application is inaccurate or inconsistent with an approved tree protection plan, and lastly, the applicant or landowner is carrying on activities that are in contravention of the bylaw. Within municipal private tree bylaws throughout the province, tree compensation is a common condition of permit approval. Compensation refers to the planting of replacement trees for every tree that is removed under the authority of a permit. There are several types of compensation that are commonly used throughout the province. A ratio-based compensation approach could offer adequate replacement value for lost trees while ensuring that the compensation process is straightforward for residents. As you will note on the table above, replacement plantings may be scaled up depending on the size of the tree removed. Staff offer a tree compensation schedule on this slide for consideration that reflects the general intention of those utilized in other municipalities, most notably Niagara-on-the-Lake. A security deposit can also be required for each replacement tree. The security deposit will be refunded once a final inspection of the planting is complete. An example of such deposit could be a $250 deposit for owners who are individuals or a $500 deposit for owners who are corporations. Replacement plantings are typically always preferred on the subject property to which the permit is issued for. However, should replacement plantings not be able to be accommodated on the subject property, a cash in lieu amount of $500 per tree could be paid to the town for natural feature enhancement within the town. This approach is currently utilized in another local municipality. The town has experienced a number of tree cutting incidents over the past year, most of which did not result in enforcement action, either due to the inapplicability of the town's tree bylaw or enforcement was carried out by the regional forester under the region's woodland conservation bylaw. Staff recognize that in order to have an impactful bylaw to protect trees within the town, enforcement needs to be incorporated into the bylaw. There are three main enforcement mechanisms available for tree bylaws, and those are orders, administrative monetary penalties, and offenses. Staff are recommending the implementation of administrative orders as a first step in the response to a violation of the amended bylaw. An order to discontinue activity will require the owner to halt the cutting of trees within their property. A work order may then be issued to the owner to do work to correct the contravention. In the case of a violation to the tree bylaw, the owner would be required to cease cutting activities and restore the area with plantings. In addition to an administrative order, administrative monetary penalties could be issued at the discretion of staff to those property owners who contravene the bylaw. Administrative monetary penalties may also be issued to contractors who cause the injury or destruction to a regulated tree. Administrative monetary penalties could be determined by staff to be either a minor penalty or a major penalty, depending on the severity of the proposed offense. In addition, administrative monetary penalties may be tiered in nature and issued for each subsequent offense and/or day to which the contravention occurs. Several other municipalities within Ontario utilize administrative monetary penalties within their bylaws, including Oakville and Peterborough. An owner of the property who conducts work that is in contravention of the bylaw can also be found guilty of an offense and, upon conviction in court, be liable to a fine for each day or part of a day on which the offense continues. Penalties associated with an offense could remain consistent with those outlined within the Provincial Offences Act and the Municipal Act. Staff note that under this approach, a person who contravenes the bylaw may be issued a fine under an administrative monetary penalty or be issued a fine under a conviction, but not both. Though the fines associated with convicted offenses are higher than those associated with administrative monetary penalties can be implemented to provide a greater level of compliance from both the property owners and the contractors who have contravened the bylaw. Staff have presented a number of options in terms of tree protection, permitting, and enforcement, which will have a much broader application throughout the town. If council were to approve a new tree bylaw with greater tree protections, additional staffing would most likely be required to assist with administering the bylaw, permitting, and enforcement. Even greater staff resourcing may be required if individual trees are regulated under a new bylaw, as opposed to only the regulation of the natural heritage system. Depending on the complexity of the final bylaw, specialized staff may be required with background and experience in good forestry practices and arboriculture. At this time, staff are seeking feedback from the members of council on the preferred regulation approach in order to move forward with a recommendation report. The recommendation report will be provided at a future council meeting and will contain recommendations for both staffing and bylaw implementation timing. This concludes my presentation today, and staff welcome any discussion that arises from the information presented within this information report. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Ms. Daniels. Excellent presentation and an excellent report that you prepared in support of this. Do any members of council have any questions? Councillor Lewis?
Your worship, just one question that came to me in the presentation. The 50 centimeter diameter for the tree, how do we get to 50 centimeters? Or maybe if you can just tell us a little bit about how we arrived there based on some of the other recommendations.
Sure. Through my Redekop to Councillor Lewis, based on the comments received at the open house, in addition to the clearing of lands within the natural heritage system, residents also expressed concern over the removal of large diameter historic trees within the community. So staff felt that a regulation of trees greater than 50 centimeters in DBH would address a significant amount of these concerns that were raised by residents. As discussed, this approach would necessitate the need for a higher amount of staffing in order to administer the bylaw, with an even higher amount needed for smaller trees than 50 centimeter DBH. That said, staff are open to considering a lower diameter should that be council's directive.
Perfect, and thank you for your presentation. I like the direction that this is heading in, and it's been a long time in the making, so thank you.
Thank you very much.
Christensen.
And I'm not sure which slide number, but it's page 9 in your report. It speaks to the compensation ratios for consideration. And I just wanted to clarify that the diameter at breast height in centimeters that triggers the number of replacement trees is the diameter of the tree being removed.
Yes, that's correct.
What diameter would be stipulated for the replacement trees?
Through my Redekop to Councillor Christensen, I don't have that information on hand at the moment, but based on other municipal tree bylaws within Ontario, there's some standard requirements for the size depending on whether it's a deciduous tree, so a tree with leaves that fall off during the winter, versus a coniferous tree, so like an evergreen, along those lines. Evergreens, I believe, are based off of a certain height, because that's the size that certain tree farms go off of, whereas deciduous trees have a certain size caliper, and I believe that caliper is 60 millimeters offhand, but that's something that staff can put into a recommendation report in more detail.
Thank you. It links to the concern, my concern with respect to the fact that large trees have been removed and small saplings are the replacement. And I think I would speak for a lot of people, that's not a replacement. So that would be my concern. Again, like Councillor Lewis and the Mayor, this is a long time coming, and I welcome the work, and thank you very much.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Any other members of council? Ms. Daniels, I just wanted to get some clarification on a few points.
Sure.
So the first one has to do with the 2.02 hectare parcels within the urban boundary. And I don't know whether there's a connection of that with the provision about lands in a pending development application. Because our concern has been that maybe some developers with foresight or maybe advice that I wouldn't appreciate are clearing some land, and that's before an application for any type of approval has been made. So is there a connection between that and the 2.02 hectares, or there was one other? So I'll let you answer that if you can.
Yeah, no problem. Redekop, the 2.02 hectares was a number that was derived from the City of Guelph's research on what was the standard size of the property that would be most likely to undergo larger scale development, and that was the number that was zeroed in on. These two different clauses are a little bit separate. So the regulation approach referring to the protection of trees during and prior to Planning Act approvals, that would start from the time that we have a pre-consultation meeting with that developer up until the point that an application is approved. The protection of lands greater than 2.02 hectares may serve to give increased protection even prior to when a pre-consultation is scheduled with the town, as we wouldn't know about that property without that pre-consultation meeting.
I noticed that it makes, the 2.02 hectares makes reference to residential. Part of the problem I think that we've also encountered is that within the urban boundary, there are parcels of land that may be of that magnitude, not necessarily currently zoned residential, but certainly has the potential to be residential. And once the lands are cleared, that resolves a lot of problems for the owner in terms of environmental conservation overlay issues, as an example. Has there been consideration given to that aspect of the issue?
At this time, there has not been consideration to changing the wording from residential to any zoning, but that's definitely something staff can take back and to look into for the recommendation report.
I'd appreciate it if you would. With respect to the issue about the farmers being able to clear the land as long as they are going to be farming it within 3 years. We have a lot of land in Fort Erie that isn't farmed by the owner, but it's farmed by a tenant farmer. How would that play into this? Because it's not the owner who's actually doing the farming. The owner is using the farmer as the justification for clearing woodlands.
Mayor Redekop, I don't have the answer to that currently. That's something that we can look into for a recommendation report. We realize that the exemptions surrounding farmers need to be written in a very specific way in order to ensure that that is not being taken advantage of. So we'll take that back for consideration in terms of the tenants versus the owners of the property.
Thank you. And you had mentioned that on this slide here, actually, lands within the natural heritage system. Does that include lands that are designated with environmental conservation overlay?
Through Mayor Redekop, the intention of the natural heritage system wording was to likely annex a lot of the EC and EP areas into one schedule of a tree protection area at the back of the bylaw. That's something that'll need to be further refined by staff in the creation of that to determine which areas make sense to be put into that tree protection area.
Okay. And I just had one other question that arose during your presentation. No, I've got it covered. Okay. Thank you very much. Are there any other members of council at this point? Okay. Thank you very much, Ms. Daniels. And there may be some questions or comments that might arise from the public before we're finished with this public meeting, so I may ask you to come back if possible.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, so we're going to go to the public. Are there any members of council any members of the public who would wish to address council? It's only 7 o'clock. So, I saw some hands up here. Could you put your hands up, please? And I'll eventually go to the back. So I'm going to start with, I'll start with Marcy, and then I'll go with Linda, and then we'll go to the back.
We're actually going together.
You go together, you're a team. Cool. Good evening.
Good evening. Do you want our ID cards?
If you would give your name and address for the record, that would be helpful.
Okay, my name is Marcy Jacqueline. I live at 931 Edgemere Road in Fort Erie.
And I'm Linda Goodridge at 219 Emmerich Avenue in Fort Erie.
Okay. they're just putting this PowerPoint up. Okay, and I can work it from here? Perfect, okay. First, I'd like to.
Is this a presentation you can provide to council afterwards, or does the clerk already have it?
They already have it.
Okay, so I
Yep.
would ask for that to be circulated to members of council. Thank you.
My speaking notes might have changed a bit, so if you want that as well, just let me know. Okay, should I get started?
Please do.
Okay. So many thanks to the town council for this initiative, and especially to town staff and Rachel Daniels for all the work they did preparing this draft. So what is the point of a tree bylaw? I'm assuming it's to protect trees. Why protect trees? Well, they offer everyone free services. They provide oxygen by photosynthesis, and they also remove carbon dioxide and store carbon. And just as an aside, it is important that urban forest management should be part of the municipal climate action plans. They also provide flood protection. A mature tree can absorb up to 3,800 liters of rainfall every year. And shade, of course, has been mentioned, as well as wildlife habitat, including dead trees. For instance, the endangered red-headed woodpecker, which is a key species in Fort Erie, requires dead trees for nesting. And I think a lot of residents consider it a community asset as well. Oops. Sorry. Okay, so I'm kind of following the document that was handed out. So I'm concerned about a few things in the protected tree criteria. One is the effectiveness of the region's tree protection plans. And I really need to know if there are penalties for people who violate these plans. The other is the 50 centimeter DHBH, which was explained already. For many other municipalities, 20 centimeters is common. The best is actually 15 centimeters, and the town's EAC committee has recommended 10 centimeters. So why is this important? Well, 20 centimeter tree is approximately 10 to 15 years old, depending on the species, okay? A 50 centimeter tree is at least 20 years old. However, I just found out today, my favorite tree, red maple, at 50 centimeters is 108 years old, along with many other common native trees in the 100-year-old range. Okay. Oops, I'm sorry, I'm falling behind my slides. Okay. Okay, so these are just some examples of carbon sequestering. So on both sides of the next two slides, the average carbon sequestering storage is on the left axis, and it is tons per acre, and the bottom is the age of the year of the trees or the forest. So if you look carefully, you can see that forests in the age range of 70 to 125 years old will be providing oxygen for the next couple of decades. But if we eliminate or reduce these trees, and also reduce the trees that are 5 to 20 years old, there's going to be some gaps in trees that are providing us with oxygen and storing carbon. Same with this tree, it shows this slide, it shows forests, same scale. And you can see even different types of forests do kind of the same thing. There's a trend there. The young trees don't capture as much, obviously, they're too small. And as they get older, they capture a lot more, 5 times as much by the time from 0 to 125 years old. So I think our focus needs to be on having a range of ages of trees. If we cut down all the big trees now, there'll be no carbon sequestering for decades. Okay. Just as an example, the removal of 1,000 trees recently at one site has been estimated to eliminate oxygen for 400 people. Oh, I also want to mention infilling. because developers are buying large urban lots and knocking down all of these trees and building site from one side of the site to the other. Some of our communities starting to look like a moonscape. I really believe in high-density building, but not at the expense of natural assets. And now I'm looking at the exemptions. I'm concerned about the number of exemptions. Unless it's tightened up, if there's wiggle room, people will use it. Some people don't like trees. They'll use any excuse to try and have a tree cut down. And landowners, in fact, could use, okay, am I on the same? No, I am not. Oh, okay. I think I skipped forward, I'm sorry. So I'm concerned about trees within 20 meters of a building or structure. I think that's mentioned in one part on page 7. And that's most trees in Fort Erie. And also what the criteria for imminent threat would be. Also, I'm concerned about the removal of 10 trees per hectare per year, which could actually take out 20 trees between December and January, which is a lot of trees. Okay, I think now, am I on this? Yes, I'm on this page, sorry. I suggest that unless there's a good reason, the trees can't be cut down. Okay, am I going backwards? Yes, I am.
Backwards, yeah, you've been there.
Okay, I think I'm on there. Okay, I apologize. Any and all assessments must be done by the town or region's arborist or agent who is qualified to do such assessments and also at risk of losing their license if they provide questionable assessments. The bylaws should also hold contractors equally at fault if the bylaw is not adhered to. And I'm also concerned about permit issuance and who will advise in regards to the first 5 criteria under permits may be refused when. I'm really pleased with the compensation ratios and cash in lieu and the security deposits. The ratios aren't perfect, but they're a good start. The bylaw needs to be clear in cases where compensation for properties with, say, for example, 50 trees, and there's only room to save 15 trees, it needs to be clear that the other 35 trees need to be cash in lieu for care and planting of native trees elsewhere. I also have a couple of issues with the administrative monetary penalties. Why is it issued at the discretion of staff? I think that's inconsistent, and it's also not transparent. It needs to be clear and also high enough to be a deterrent, especially of serious and large offenses. Monetary penalties for a few trees might be waived based on need for, but this shouldn't be a regular practice and only for homeowners. It is very important that contractors are informed and educated about the tree bylaw and the risk and what penalties they will have. And just so you know, we're not the only municipality having this problem. Just recently, within the last few weeks, 776 charges were laid in the city of St. Catharines against 4 people who cut trees down on the city of St. Catharines property at Martindale Pond. And in regards to the additional staffing, which of course is very important, I would hope that the application fees collected and the fines imposed would go some way to pay for administrative enforcement, like Airbnbs. And now Linda's going to complete the presentation.
Okay, I was lucky enough to be present at the information session that was held earlier this this fall, and I was absolutely amazed at how many people in attendance were concerned about the clear cutting of trees and the reduction in our tree canopy. I mean, just about everyone who had something to say mentioned that. So I just think that really shows how important it is for us to have this bylaw, and I believe it will get a fair amount of support amongst the public. As I mentioned, it's also becoming increasingly noticeable that the canopy cover is rapidly diminishing. And this doesn't bode well for climate change mitigation. As Marcy's already said, trees are necessary for our well-being and health. Whoops. Okay. Also, the Environmental Advisory Committee had some excellent suggestions, and I think that they're listed here. But most importantly, is the idea of the diameter at breast height. I think that's a concern that a number of us have. The EAC committee has recommended 10 centimeters. I know that that's the lower end of the range, but really we need to go below the 50 centimeters in order to have a variety of trees that are left behind. Also, if you'll notice, the EAC committee also suggests that we use a certified arborist and, something so that, we have the actual data, somebody who is licensed and has all of the necessary information to help make those decisions. I think also, it's mentioned here that steep fines for both contractors and property owners, and hopefully some of these steep fines will help to pay for the extra costs that might be incurred by putting this bylaw into effect in terms of staff time, etc. Last but not least, dead trees. We don't have to eliminate every tree. We can, dead trees have some value as well, as long as they're not creating a problem for residents and things of that sort. They're useful for animals who use them for their habitat. Marcy also mentioned the red-headed woodpecker, but there are other animals and birds that use cavities. They're cavity nesters, and they use dead trees, and they need them for that as well. So I think that basically sums up our presentation tonight. We want you to know that we're thrilled to death that the town is looking at improving the bylaw, and I want to thank Rachel for all the work she's put into it, and we hope that we'll have one that we can be proud of and that will serve us for years to come and will help us get through the climate emergency that we're going through right now. Thank you.
Thank you. So before either of you step away, I don't know if there are members of council that have any questions of either Ms. Jacqueline or Ms. Goodrich. Okay. So thank you very much for the comments and the information that you've provided. I'm sure that will provide some good additional information for Ms. Daniels. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Now, was there somebody else in that part that had their hand up, or have we heard from your spokespeople? Mr. Regal? Good evening.
Good evening, sir. My name is Marvin Regal from Ridgeway. I might add that
we need your address, sir.
I'm sorry?
We need your address.
780 Ridge Road North, Ridgeway.
Thank you.
I might start by saying that I mentioned to Ms. Daniels here the situation about a list of native trees, so that all of us have got a good understanding of what is permitted and what's not permitted. I was very happy with her response. I also commented about the transplanting of some trees where we have to move a tree, for example, maybe 15 or 20 feet, that there be allowance for that so long as the transplant is done in a very orderly and professional manner. And then the last item I have, I would encourage a town to be looking at more of clearance of these dead ash trees. You go up Highway 3 and you see properties for sale where there seems to be an inordinate amount of dead ash almost on the edge of the pavement. And hopefully this can be looked into, because some of us are afraid to travel some of these roads, especially Nye Road East, where we're just wondering if one of those huge ash trees are going to come down on top of us. So I'm encouraging the town to take a very serious look at that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Regal.
Thank you.
Now, before you go, any members of council have any questions of Mr. Regal? No? Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else in that little grouping? Then back to you, sir. Good evening.
Good evening. You have to bear with me. I got a little bit of laryngitis.
Yeah, okay.
My name is John Brosney. I live at 880 Edgemere Road. Just got a few questions. Definition of a tree, is that going to be by species? Is that going to be by height, width, or how is it going to be determined? Next one, the permits to cut trees down, stuff like that, are they going to be free, or is there going to be a charge for them? And the fines for cutting down, like, I love trees, don't get me wrong, I love trees, but the fines for cutting down these trees, why shouldn't there be both? A very steep fine, and they have to replace the tree. Like she's saying it's and or. Why not both?
I don't think that's what I think what she was saying is you can't lay a charge under AMPS, which is an administrative monetary penalty, and also lay a charge where you go to court. I believe that was the comment there.
Why not?
Well, because it's a double jeopardy type situation. You can't be charged under two separate systems. One provides for an easier method to collect the penalty. The other provides for a more detailed process, which could result in a higher penalty. I don't believe that she said, and we'll ask her when everybody else has had their comments, we'll ask her about the either or one and, so a penalty and a replacement. Okay?
Yeah, I've seen several times where they've been contractors and even homeowners been doing work on lakeside properties over there. And they get the excavators in and they just rip these trees up by the roots, and the guy's yelling at them, just pay the fine, it'll be okay, it's not that big of a deal. I think you guys should make, if you're gonna do it, you should make these fines so steep, like so ridiculously high, that they're really gonna think about doing that kind of stuff.
Well, for what it's worth, everybody behind you is shaking their head in agreement.
Oh. Okay, thank you.
So before you go, are there any members of council who have any questions of, is Mr. Brosney?
Yeah,
Thank you very much, sir, for your comments.
okay.
Is there anyone else who wishes to address council on this matter? Yes. Sorry, Roxanne, I'm going to go to the lady at the back.
Okay, that's okay. It just came to me now.
Sorry, I don't have Pete
Hello.
Ashbridge, 541 Lakeview Road. I thank you, Rachel, for your hard work on this bylaw. I think some of the options that are presented to council are very valuable. As I understand it, there's two kind of directions that council can choose to go in. One is regulating tree clearing in smaller woodlots than what the regional tree bylaw prohibits. I think that's obviously a commendable direction for council to go in. I just want to stress the importance of protecting individual trees. Not everybody lives in a highly forested area, yet the individual trees, especially the larger ones, they obviously offer a lot of value. I won't repeat a lot of the things that have been said about the environmental benefits of trees, because I think we all understand that. I just wanted to add there is the additional component of general satisfaction of living in a town that has a tree canopy. Personally, we live in Crescent Park. The area is being decimated by the emerald ash borer. More and more people move in. There's infilling. There's been an incredible amount of tree clearing and very, very minor tree replanting. So it's really changing the nature of our streets, which obviously has impacts on property values, the stormwater management. There's so many factors. And I just think that the town of Fort Erie should consider the direction that we want to head into. We're in a position right now where we're not in the GTA exactly, and we have the opportunity to protect the trees and our natural heritage and our overall streetscapes, right? And I think it would be wise for council to move in the direction of protecting an individual tree, which does have an importance in this town. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Asbridge. Any members of council have any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Burton.
Roxanne McKay Burton, 3252 Hyman Avenue in Ridgeway. A question came to me from one of the speakers. On these administrative penalties, is there an automatic provision for these to roll on to the tax rolls if they aren't paid promptly? Or is it something that they're going to have to chase and not be able to ever recover?
We're going to get the answer to that shortly.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Ms. Featherston.
Maria Featherston, 996 Parkdale. I just have one question about the replanting. It's all well and good to replant the trees, but is anybody going to be checking up to make sure they survive and that they're planted properly?
Yeah, that's referred to in the report. So, Ms. Daniels, there were a few questions that were asked, particularly about the penalties. Maybe you could respond to that.
Mayor Redekop, in regards to the administrative monetary penalties, it would be the direction of staff right now to collect those administrative monetary penalties through a tax roll. That can be further explored if council would like to move in a different direction, but that would be staff's intention right now.
There's also a question about whether an administrative penalty could be imposed as well as a requirement to replace. Can you comment on that?
Yes, administrative monetary penalties can be applied for or can be prescribed as well as the replanting. The contradiction that I was referring to is that someone cannot be given an AMPS penalty and then brought to court for that same charge after. It's either one or the other, but typically we would be seeing an administrative order at first and then followed up with an administrative monetary penalty if that order was not complied with.
Were there any other items that you thought you might be able to respond to right now that were raised?
Yes, so the definition of a tree was discussed. So consistent with the current bylaw and the regional woodland conservation bylaw, the definition of a tree is proposed to stay the same within an updated bylaw, and that is any species of tree that has the ability, any woody species of tree that has the ability to reach a height of 4.5 meters at physiological maturity. There's also a question on permit fees. I can speak to that. So under Part 3 orders, the maximum fines are up to $100,000. However, special fines can be more than that. In cases of continuous or multiple offenses, these can range from $500 to $1,000 a day per offense and can exceed the $100,000 in total if it's a continued or multiple offense.
I don't think there were any other items. Did any other members of council have any further questions of Ms. Daniels? If not, thank you very much. Now, Mr. Patton, is there anyone in the digital waiting room wishing to address council on this issue?
There is no way in the digital here.
Thank you. And Mr. Cook, I understand we received one piece of correspondence today with respect to this matter.
Yes, Your Worship. Staff received written comments from the following individual. Helena Harris, 11 Lake Breeze Court. These comments have been forwarded to council. and to planning staff to be considered in a future staff report.
Thank you very much. There being no other input with respect to this matter, I'm going to declare this public meeting closed, which means we can move to report PDS 78, 2023. And Councillor Dubanow, I understand you have that resolution.
I do, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Christensen that Council receives for information purposes report PDS 78, 2023 regarding amendments to bylaw 60-04, a bylaw to regulate the destruction, injury, and harvesting of trees in the town of Fort Erie.
Thank you. So that report is on the floor. Councillor Lewis.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to make a couple of comments, and that is, I know there were some recommendations for EAC that certainly staff are taking into consideration, but I just want to mention the part that I found the most interesting out of the whole report was the fact that it highlighted the amount of community acceptance and the push to really get this done. And I know this was an issue that certainly you and I would remember from many years ago on council, people wanting us to strengthen this.
Thank you. Councillor Christensen.
Through your worship, one of my first introductions to constituency work was a call that I got from a constituent about the clear cutting, the obscene clear cutting at Burleigh and Thunder Bay just after the December Storm Elliott. And it not only was my constituent upset, but I think I was even more upset. This is welcome, and I will definitely be supporting the information report. I thank staff for doing such an excellent job.
Thank you. Any other members of council? Councillor McDermott? Do you have your hand?
I tend to agree with both Councillor Lewis and Councillor Christensen on this. I think it's a good report that will be strengthened by the words of our delegates tonight. I certainly agree with the big surprises that we have all the time is that land is being chopped down, and it's always too late for us to do anything, really, aside from planning. And so I think on these big projects where they just go at it and we're surprised by it, it should really be no surprise anymore, right? I mean, it really shouldn't. It happens all the time. And I think that, you know, the developers that do this know darn well that they're breaking the law. The big problem is, for us, is we don't have the mechanism to fine them enough. And, you know, it's something that we really have to do, especially on these big cases. I think that in the big cases, I think we really have to take them on and say, listen, you want to develop in this town, you're going to have to smarten up, but here's your fine right now. The next time, you lose your privileges to develop in our town. I mean, everybody that comes here knows the rules and regulations. They go through pre-consultation. They know what the rules are, and they're not kidding anybody. And I think that the proof in the pudding is the strength that you have behind all the words and all the rules that we have. So I really am happy with this report. I'm happy with the fact that some of our environmentalists are here today and offered up some of maybe areas where we're lacking. And normally you can pretty much judge by the character of these folk that this is going to help us a great deal. So I'm going to be supporting this as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McDermott. Councillor Dubanow.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Just a few thoughts, and I will be supporting this as well. And in fact, I'm thrilled that we're moving forward with this. Nothing frustrates me more than when I'm driving through town and I see somewhere that I know doesn't have a development application, but, you know, with my involvement on the planning subcommittee, you get a feel for what our kind of parcels that have value. And when you see it clear cut, you're thinking, okay, well, you know what's coming. You're going to see a development application or something down the road. And it's unfortunate that happens before we have an opportunity to go in and look at tree preservations plans as part of a subdivision. That's frustrating for me. So I'm thrilled to see this. The only thing that, just for staff's consideration moving forward, I think it's important just to be sensitive to individual property owners who, they live within the urban boundary, they're on a standard size parcel. In my experience, and I may be wrong, but I've been here for 6 years now, most of the complaints that I've had about tree cutting for individual parcels have been individuals that have been told that they have to take a tree down rather than a tree being told they can't take a tree down than they want to. So knowing the expense and knowing the draw and knowing everything that is involved in individual trees on properties, I think it's just important for us to be sensitive to the individual property owners and what they face and what they would go through if they have to relocate a tree to do something or get rid of it. Just something to consider. One thing that I do think that we need to seriously look at regulating, and this has become an issue that I've run into personally on a number of occasions, are boundary trees. One issue that I find is that is the most likely type of tree on an urban residential parcel to be cut down, and it's typically out of spite or an anger or a neighbor dispute. The tree is on the property line, someone cuts it down because they're angry at their neighbor and they want to hurt their neighbor. Those are the things that I think we really need to look at, are the boundary trees, the trees that are very large diameter trunks. Those are the ones on individual properties that I think we need to zero in on and ensure that we're protecting and that we're looking at. Beyond that, I think it's, again, most of the time, someone's got a white X on a tree. They do not want to take the tree down. It has to come down because it's unsafe. So I find it's kind of the opposite on parcels in residential and kind of your standard house size lots. So those are my thoughts. I am very much looking forward to the recommendation report. The sooner we can get this through and get a bylaw passed and get this working, the better, in my opinion. I'm just as frustrated as every other member of the community driving around, seeing another parcel has been cleared. We really need to clamp down on that and ensure that if we do have development applications come forward, we have the opportunity to do tree preservation plans and other environmental scoping rather than going in and clear cutting the area before that has occurred. So those are my thoughts. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Councillor Dubanow. I'm going to then call the question on the information report. All those in favor? None opposed? That is carried. That takes us to the consent agenda. Are there any items in the consent agenda that anyone wishes removed? If not, then Councillor Christensen, I'm going to go to you for the motion to approve the consent agenda items.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor McDermott, that Council approves the consent agenda as recommended.
Any questions or comments? I had a question with respect to item 1.2, which is the council and committee meeting of November the 6th. There's a reference to the Appendix 2 in the land matters, but it's not part of the report, part of the minutes. So going forward, can we ensure that that type of thing, I didn't pick it up until yesterday. Okay. If there are no other questions or comments, all those in favor of the consent agenda? None opposed, that is carried. That then takes us to reports. There are none. Takes us to new business, and we have a resolution with respect to Bill C-310. And Councillor McDermott, I believe you have that resolution?
Yes, I do, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Christensen. Whereas volunteer firefighters account for 71% of Canada's total firefighting essential first responders, and whereas approximately 8,000 essential search and rescue volunteers respond to thousands of incidents every year, and whereas the Tax Code of Canada currently allows volunteer firefighters and search and rescue volunteers to claim a $3,000 tax credit if 200 hours of volunteer services were completed in a calendar year. And whereas this works out to a mere $450 per year, which we allow those essential volunteers to keep of their own income from their regular jobs, $225 an hour, and whereas if volunteer firefighters volunteer more than 200 hours, this tax credit becomes even less. And whereas these essential volunteers not only put their lives on the line and give their time, training, and efforts to Canadians, but they also allow cities and municipalities to keep property taxes lower than if paid services were required. And whereas increasing this tax credit would allow these essential volunteers to keep more of their hard-earned money likely to be spent in the communities in which they live, and whereas it would also help retain these volunteers in a time when volunteerism is decreasing. Therefore, be it resolved that the Municipal Council of the Corporation of the Town of Fort Erie call upon the Government of Canada to support Bill C-310 and enact amendments to subsections 118.062 and 118.072 of the Income Tax Act in order to increase the amount of tax credits for volunteer firefighting and search and rescue volunteer services from $3,000 to $10,000.
Thank you, Councillor McDermott. And I note that in many of the resolutions that we consider, we have a provision about circulating the resolution to various parties. And Mr. Clerk, I'm not sure whether this went through, I'm sure it went through your office. I'm just wondering whether we shouldn't have a provision that this be circulated to Association of Municipalities of Ontario and certainly our local MPs, or at least the Niagara MPs, as well as the local area municipalities in Niagara for support. Just wondering. And I'm sure that Councillor McDermott, that would be a friendly amendment. And I don't know if there's anyone else that we want to send this to. Chief, anyone else we should send this to?
Mayor, this petition is actually circulated through the Ontario Association of Fire Chiefs, so it's had the ability to hit most of the municipalities that would be affected by volunteerism. So I think it's covered.
Okay. So I think we should still send it to AMO, you're not working on that as we speak. Okay, so what, the MPPs and the MPs. So how do I get that up on my screen? Do I have to pull down to update it? Okay, yeah, because I don't have it on my, oh, here we go. Okay. You'll tidy that up a little bit?
Correct, yes.
Okay. All right. You're content with that, Councillor McDermott? Yeah. And your seconder is content with that? Okay. Anybody wish to speak to that? Not, I'll call the question. All those in favor? None opposed? That is carried. So that takes us to closed session. We need a resolution to go into closed session. I didn't see whether you had appointed someone on that or not, Mr. Clerk. Councillor Christensen, you have it.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor McDermott, that council goes into closed session at 7:40 p.m. to consider the following: Niagara Transit Commission Public Advisory Committee appointments pursuant to Section 239(2)B of the Municipal Act 2001, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, and 13365 Pettit Road, OLT-23-00275 pursuant to Section 239-2E of the Municipal Act 2001, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, and Section 239-2F, advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Then we're going Okay, we're back in the council chambers, and Councillor Lewis, you have the resolution for us to come back into open session.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Dubanow that council rises and reconvenes from closed session at 8:47 p.m. with report that council appoints Jeff Mann to the Niagara Transit Commission Public Advisory Committee for the term ending November the 14th, 2026, or until their successor is appointed. And B, that council directs staff and legal counsel to proceed as directed in closed session.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor? None opposed, that is carried. And Mr. Clerk, do you notify the other applicants in these types of situations if they're not selected?
Through your worship, I will confirm with the regional clerk if that's their responsibility or ours, but we will be sure to notify them.
Okay, thank you very much. So that takes us then to motions. And Councillor Lewis, you have a motion.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McDermott, whereas Hospice Niagara provides much-needed specialized care with compassion and dignity for people, caregivers, and family members at home and in a hospice residence with a team of palliative care specialists across Niagara Region free of charge. And whereas Hospice Niagara provides in-home medical, emotional, and social supports right from the time of diagnosis to help improve quality of life and well-being for everyone, including family and friends. And whereas critical services like those offered by Hospice Niagara improve quality of life for individuals living with life-limiting illnesses, as well as caregivers, family, and friends. And whereas these services are needed now more than ever, since home care is the model for our health care today and a preferred place for those dealing with illness who prefer to be at home or in a home-like setting offered by Hospice Niagara. And whereas increasing capacity in hospice palliative care throughout Niagara Region moves the region towards a truly modern, connected healthcare system that nurtures close partnerships with long-term care hospitals, homes, and hospice. And whereas the town of Fort Erie, like many municipalities, has seen the value added by Hospice Niagara to our community and has contributed $4.83 per resident to Hospice Niagara's current approved projects to help meet their and our vision of growing exceptional, passionate care for our Niagara residents. And whereas Hospice Niagara continues ongoing fundraising efforts to build new beds and support programs. And whereas these new programs benefit all Niagara municipalities, and whereas currently not all Niagara municipalities have contributed the $4.83 per resident to the approved Hospice Niagara projects, therefore be it resolved that the Municipal Council of the Town of Fort Erie encourages all area municipalities who have not yet contributed the $4.83 per resident to do so, and join the many other Niagara municipalities, including Fort Erie, who have already supported Hospice Niagara by making the same commitment to Hospice Niagara's currently approved projects, recognizing that West Niagara has a project in the queue, and further that a copy of this resolution be circulated to the region of Niagara and all of the local municipalities.
Did you want to say anything further? Any members of council? There being none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. There are two motions that I had put forward that I've asked to be deferred until December the 18th. That takes us to notice of motion. Any notice of motion from any member of council this evening? If not, then that takes us to consideration of bylaws. And are there any bylaws that anyone wishes removed from the package? If not, then Councillor Dubanow, would you proceed with first and second reading of the bylaw package?
Yes, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Christensen that the bylaw package containing 158-2023 to accept and declare lands as public highway 06630 Thunder Bay Road, 159-2023 to amend zoning bylaw 12990 as amended 0-10417 Walden Boulevard, Apex Building Development Group Incorporated owner, 160-2023 to enact an amendment to the official plan adopted by bylaw 15006 for the town of Fort Erie planning area, amendment 75, 1101 DiPietro Street, 1101 DiPietro Street Incorporated owner, 161-2023 to amend zoning bylaw 12990 as amended, 1101 DiPietro Street, 1101 DiPietro Street Incorporated owner, 162-2023 to amend zoning bylaw 12990, 3458 Black Creek Road, Crystal Ridge Homes owner, 163-2023 to exempt certain lots in Plan M65 from part lot control, 26 Loganberry Court, part of Lot 32 and Lot 35, Jetmar Subdivision, Mars Homes, Crystal Beach Incorporated, 164-2023 to exempt a certain block in Plan 59M-438 from part lot control, Village Creek Drive, Block 56, Village Creek Subdivision, Park Lane Home Builders Limited, Kathy Lentition, owner, and 165-2023 to authorize the appointment of auditor and authorize the execution of a letter of engagement with Grant Thornton LLP for the fiscal years 2023 through 2025 and repeal bylaw 101-2020 is given first and second reading.
All those in favor? And opposed? That is carried. That bylaw package is on the floor for any questions or comments. There being none, Councillor McDermott, would you provide third and final reading, please?
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Christensen, that bylaws 158-2023 to 165-2023 inclusive are given third and final reading to be signed by the mayor and clerk under the corporate seal.
Are there any questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Councillor Lewis, you have the resolution for first and second reading of the confirmatory bylaw.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Christensen that bylaw 166-2023 to confirm the actions of council at its council and committee meeting held on November the 6th, 2023 and November the 20th, 2023, council and budget committee meeting held on November the 15th, 2023, and its council meeting held on November the 27th, 2023, is given first and second reading.
All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Councillor Christensen, third and final reading for the...
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor McDermott, that bylaw 166-2023 is given third and final reading to be signed by the mayor and clerk under the corporate seal.
Are there any questions or comments? All those in favor? None opposed? That is carried. That takes us to scheduling of meetings. Councillor Dubanow.
Yes, Your Worship. We have a Planning and Development Services Business Subcommittee meeting on Tuesday, December 5th at 3:15 p.m. That is here in Town Hall in Conference Room 2.
Any other meetings? Councillor Christensen and then Councillor Lewis.
On December the 6th from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., we have a Town of Fort Erie Seniors Advisory Committee at the Fort Erie Seniors Active Living Center on High Street, and at from 5:30 to 8 p.m. At the Crystal Ridge Library, we have a Ridgeway BIA meeting.
Same day, December the 6th?
Yes.
Councillor Lewis.
December the 13th at 6 p.m. will be the annual general meeting of the Crystal Beach Business Improvement Association, and that is the only ones I have this week.
Thank you. That then takes us to adjournment and, oh, surprise, surprise, Councillor Dubanow, you have the resolution.
Always, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Christensen that council adjourns at 8:56 p.m. to reconvene into a regular meeting of council on December 18th, 2023.
All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you all. That concludes the evening.